With the number 1 engine, called number 1 because it's first in line to replace the power plant on the 24.
Among things where we are right now, the connecting rods are in and adjusted. We have between 1.5 and 2 thousandths on all of these by the, what do you call that stuff?
Plastic gauge.
Plastic gauge. The main bearings are adjusted by feel. In other words, I took out shims, adjusted shims until I had a drag on each one, and they're pretty good shape now. The old instruction manual doesn't use plastic gauge, it goes by feel. Well, alright, we do that. So you can see it's a fairly short lever, and it turns, that's all the friction is basically in the piston rings. So that's how it should turn. When you get it all finished, you should be able to turn it with a small bar like this. I think what we should explain a little bit was I've talked about taking this crank from another engine and putting it in this engine. Alright, that's something you want to do with a great deal of care. First of all, the main bearings in this block had to be standard. They didn't have to be standard. They had to be the same diameter as this crankshaft. The crankshaft had to be standard, and the block had to have been line board standard. On the engine that this crankshaft came out of, that you refer to that as the 23 truck?
Well,
whatever it is.
Number 2 engine.
Number 2, all right, number 2. I noticed that there was no lash in these gears. This gear is, on the other engine, was a plastic gear, or fiber gear. And notice how shiny these teeth are in the bottom of the groove. If you look at that, can you get the light on that? Between the teeth, the bottom?
Yeah.
Well, that's just the way it came out of that engine. These teeth on the cam were riding up hard against the bottom of those teeth. And that's a no-no. Now this is the backlash on the gear. I would say that's exactly right. So that's an ongoing thing to check on your engines and be sure. And this is, we have a brand new fiber gear for this, but it doesn't have any backlash when I put it in there. This is, I don't know how old this gear is, probably 100 years old, but it looks good, it meshes good, it's got the correct lash. So that's that. It may make a little noise, but I kind of like the noise.
Especially with your hearing aids out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was fine with that, yeah. And we used the connecting rods that were on this crankshaft.
Yes, this rod was on this crankshaft exactly like it is now. All 4 of them. This rod was actually in backwards. It's in backwards here because I want the bearing to run on the journal the same way it was before. Yeah, these connecting rods are beautiful. There's no shims in it. We filed 3 of them. Yesterday I had one that read exactly 2 thousandths, and I took off 0.5 thousandth. And now it's 1.5 by plastic gauge, and that's right where it should be. You're supposed to be able to tap them. Now you can see it move. You see it move, and I tapped it.
Yep.
Or feel it very carefully, and you can feel it move. If you can't see it, feel it. Now these, I don't know whether they're hard seats or not. I think they are. It's pretty hard to tell. Right there, that one looks like it's inserted. But when I grind that with grinding compound for an hour, and I can't hardly see any difference in the seat, it's not a soft seat.
Yeah.
I don't care what it's made out of. This is what I use for valves. Fits just about any engine. If you want to take a valve out, you put this deal over that valve seat ring, I guess you'd call it, or plate, and then I would compress it like so, and it would move this part down here. I'm not going to do that right now.
Because you just cut them in.
The keeper pin would probably drop out, and I'd have to fish it out of the oil and start all over
Yeah, you can see the
again.
keeper pin in there. Oh,
Yeah.
there it is.
You see it there?
Uh-huh.
A go, no-go feeler gauge. This happens to be 10 to 12. And they recommend 10 thousandths clearance. So, without the springs and all that, I do that and adjust this until that's what I get. Incidentally, it might frustrate some people, but the valve stems are a little over 1/8 of an inch too long. And I ground that off. I simply grind them off on the grinding wheel, hold it by hand, measure it with a caliper. I get about what I want. I leave about 3 threads on the adjuster. In case I'm a little bit too long, I can bring this down. So, rather have that down. But don't screw these in too far. You'll wreck the plastic threads in there.
We've got all our freeze plugs in. And you were talking about this being
We were talking about the other engine, that this port is so rusted and so burned out. As obviously it's been run at least 1,000 miles with a leak exhaust to burn it that much.
Yeah.
Run hard. There. If I get them all to look like that, I'm happy. It just assures me that there's nothing. And we'll use the gaskets that have the ring goes in, and then the manifold fits on the other side of the end of the ring, and then the gasket goes between there. I'm going to use copper rings this time, that style.
Okay.
If you just use the flat gasket, it'll work, but it's going to burn through almost invariably, and you'll have a problem like that other engine. We put on a new exhaust manifold. That's almost a given, because if they haven't had the rings, they'll be warped, and you can't use them after they're out of line. Intakes never fail.
So pretty soon we'll be starting to fashion the transmission together, huh?